This could be for anyone, but in particular, it's for the historians and for Professor Root. In the past, there were definite sacral components to lay offices, for example, the coronation of monarchs. Especially in that light, what effect did the collapse of Catholic monarchies, especially in the wake of the French Revolution and World War I, have on the sort of the influence of the laity?
Well, I guess that I've laid myself open to questions like that with some things I've said and written. So, I mean, my general point that I recently argued in one article, a short article, it did sort of, it gave, the laity had a way, at least some lay persons, when you did have a Catholic states, a sort of consolidated, something kind of on the level of the bureaucracy of the church. So you could talk about kind of a marriage of church and state in a more kind of terms of equals to some degree. And once that's gone, you have this new problem that I raised briefly of you could be a Catholic layman working for a state bureaucracy, and you have sort of new scruples about sort of using secular power, to investigate the church and so on. But there's also this, I sketch it out, not to recommend my article, but I explain it much more eloquently than I can at a microphone, but there was a tendency, the church, to preserve its liberty from these newly aggressive secular states, started to kind of phase out a lot of sort of lingering ways of selecting bishops in different ways, sort of lay control, and also control by lower clergy, monastics, these different ways of kind of having some input on the governance of the church. They start to get sort of phased out, and the powers get absorbed by the episcopate and the papacy in a kind of more bureaucratized way. So I feel like there's a story there that I've barely scratched the surface with, and by looking at it straight on, it's not necessarily that we need to kind of look back at this model of church governance in the past, but maybe there are sort of things that we lost that we didn't realize that we lost until fairly recently. So I don't know if another historian would like to step in and say.
One very obvious change when you have a secular state, be it a monarchy or a democracy or anything else, is that Rome becomes a lot more important. Rome literally becomes more central, because what these sacred monarchies tried to do constantly in Europe before Europe became secular was to control the church as much as possible. So the authority then resides in Rome, not in Paris or Madrid or any of the places where the monarchs hang out.
I can say two quick things. One, I do think it points to the importance of prying apart the lay clergy issue and the church-state issue, which have often read and piggyback on each other, but are today clearly different. Second, part of the problem is when Luther called for lay intervention, when the bishops wouldn't act, you knew perfectly who the lay people were. I mean, they were the princes, or in city councils in some places. The problem now is not clear who the lay people are with whom the clergy is to collaborate. I mean, that changes the situation when you no longer have a clearly Christian nobility and state structure. And there's the problem then that the church will select the clergy will select the lay people that they want, whereas they were stuck with whoever the Duke of Saxony or the King of France was. So we are in a transition period here, which requires both some structural ways of change and some conceptual ways of change.